Hello, hello everybody. I'm not sure if you got two hello everybody's because technology, but I'm joined today by the wonderful Elizabeth, and we met on LinkedIn actually. And I actually want to let you introduce yourself and the amazing work that you do.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on your great podcast. My name is Elizabeth Willets. I'm a recruiter. I've always been in recruitment, and now I run my own business called Investing in Women that helps people find flexible, part-time, or home-based roles that work around them and their family and their lifestyle. Through Investing in Women, we also host regular Facebook, LinkedIn Lives with experts aimed to empower, particularly women, to achieve success on their terms in the workplace. We've also got a podcast called Work It Like a Mum. Vicky has very kindly been on our podcast as well. So once that's released, I will definitely let you know. And I've got a book coming out in January called Flex, which is all about how to achieve career success on your terms.
I mean, it's just so amazing to hear that this is even happening, that this exists, uh,
Yeah,
that these conversations are happening, and the change that you are leading and creating. Firstly, so many of my friends are in a trap where they are afraid to leave their current job because it offers them a 4-day work week or it offers them a work,
yeah.
and they feel like there aren't any options out there. So it's amazing that there are dedicated resources being created to support um working mums.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know that is so interesting what you said about the trap because it is so true. And I do think that is why we have a gender pay gap because I think, rightly or wrongly, women still do the majority, as we all know, of the domestic load. So therefore, they're still more likely to want flexible part-time work. And therefore, if they do get it with their employer, and we all know, only 3% of roles advertised mention part-time, they are very reluctant to leave. But as a recruiter, I can tell you the best way to get a pay rise is
Right.
to leave and get a new job. It's quite hard actually once you get in somewhere to get those big jumps in salary. And I think that is honestly why we have a gender pay gap because there isn't enough roles advertised as offering flexibility, and therefore people are less likely if they get it and they want it to jump ship and get those big pay rises.
I mean, absolutely. So what do you think like companies can do about it?
Well, I think definitely if they can offer flex. And actually, what's really interesting since doing this is a lot of companies do offer flexibility, but for some strange reason, I still don't know, 3 years in, they don't always put it in their job adverts, which is very frustrating. So, actually, if you are not happy in your current role, you see a job you really like the look of, if it doesn't mention flex, I would still apply because the amount of times I've gone back to the recruiter or a hiring manager and said, "Can this role be like done flexibly?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, of course it can." And I'm like, "Why haven't you put it on the ad?" But yeah,
Wow.
but so I think employers definitely need to be mentioning flexibility if they can offer it. And if the hiring managers are saying no, then the HR and recruiters going back and challenging that. And actually those hiring managers then challenging those assumptions, why can't the role be offered flexibly? Actually really, really challenging that and getting into that. So then more roles will hopefully be opened up to flexibility. So I think that is really the key, just challenging this thinking that all roles need to be completed. Whatever work you do, it seems very bizarre, whatever you do, that they all need to be done in the same, 40 hours a week, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, because that is not how we work now. With people working, from home, working hybridly, with, more men actually wanting more flexible working as well. It's not how we work. So I think that thinking definitely needs to be challenged.
So have you had success going back to companies and challenging this and them therefore creating more flexibility in the roles?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, another thing that has been such a good thing, I think, to come out of COVID is obviously the bigger companies are now much more on board with flexible working because they've seen that remote working can work within their own firms, which is brilliant. But also, there was a record number of women that set up businesses during COVID. And now we're, 3, 4 years on, these female owned businesses are starting to hire now. And really what's, I think, amazing is the change they're doing and how those female business owners get it, and straight away they're offering roles that are offer flexibility, because often that's why they set up their own businesses. So that's been hugely promising as well. So yeah, I think there is a sea change. I think there's obviously been quite a lot of recent chatter in the papers about going back to the office full time, and that's obviously been directed from the top by predominantly men. We all know that men are more likely to be CEOs of the FTSE 100, but I think it's really promising that the younger generations and older ones, they do get it, and I think there is that pressure definitely coming through. And I hope it's not sustainable. When we see the Boots that say come back 5 days a week, that happens, then I get a surge of applicants from Boots that want out of Boots.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you literally see that happening.
Oh my God, every time a company announces everyone's back 5 days a week, like Amazon or whatever, then I get a surge of applications from that company.
Wow.
Those people wanting out.
I actually had someone on this a few weeks ago. I'm not sure how it will work in terms of data when it comes out, but
Yeah.
who was speaking about the shift in like employees when they hold the power and then employers when they hold the power, but essentially saying like you tend to actually lose your best people in either case, in either market.
Yeah.
That it's the people that you most want to keep that are going to leave.
Absolutely. It's difficult, but this is something. My husband, he worked for a company that started making redundancies a couple of years ago, and they didn't obviously want to lose everybody, but they managed the process so badly that everybody in the company got spooked. So then over the course of the year, while they were going through this redundancy process, that they didn't want to lose everyone, everybody handed in it wasn't a huge firm, everybody handed in their notice, and then they were left with nobody left, so the company had to close.
Oh, wow.
I mean,
Wow.
that's quite extreme, but it does happen. And it actually goes to show you've got to be really careful with messaging as an employer,
Yeah.
that you don't lose the people you don't want to lose.
Yes. And let's speak about like, so the recruitment process, let's go back a few steps. So how your business works is people can apply to you like candidates, but you also partner with organizations.
Yeah. So we have different, like we work with employers and candidates in different ways. So we have a job board where candidates apply for roles themselves. And then we also, for other employers, work more as like an integrated recruitment partner with them. So we work full end to end on that role, with the sourcing, the screening, interviewing, arranging further interviews, a little bit like an in-house recruitment team. So we've got two sort of different functions.
So you told me that you had a story about recruiting.
Yeah, well, this was a long time ago now, but yeah, because I'm doing a talk about unconscious bias in a couple of weeks. So I was going to weave in this story, but I think, unfortunately, I think it still happens. So when I worked for a big recruitment agency, and obviously at that point, in an agency, it's all about sales. And that is how a recruitment agency is a sales agency, really. And I think people forget that. And that, you're incentivized to place people, you get commission for placing people, and obviously the employer pays for every successful placement. But so I'd only just started in recruitment at that point. I was about a year in, if that. So it was a long time ago, and I was working with a hedge fund in Mayfair. And they were one of those ones where it sounds really prestigious, and it was on a beautiful street, but then it was a really little pokey office. And I used to have a lot of clients like that. They're obviously paying for that address. And I had the role exclusively, which means you have no competition. And then some candidates got through to the final stage with two ladies, and one lady was about 30 and one lady was probably about 45. And then they rung me up and they said they wanted to offer the lady that was 45. I mean, obviously I don't know exact age, about 45, because they were worried that the 30-year-old might get pregnant.
Oh,
Yeah. And I don't know if it's still, I mean, this is like, 16 years ago, but yeah.
I mean, I definitely still hear stories like this, like at least conversations behind closed doors.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, I think a few things. One, we're more aware of it. Two, people are sharing about it more. So I don't know if it might happen less, but we talk about it more.
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately, yes.
It's difficult, isn't it? It's a difficult thing to
I mean,
hear and to think, yeah, it still goes on.
I've had a friend that was asked in an interview process if, like,
Yeah.
about their family goals. What are your family goals?
That's a really annoying question.
Yeah.
What does she say? Because it puts you in such an awkward position then, because then you're going to be like the awkward person that says no, and people don't like feeling like that, do they, in an interview?
Yeah, I think like if someone asked me that when I was younger and less confident, then I'd probably be more likely to feel the need to
Explain.
ease but at a later point, I think I would just be like, no, 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 like this is my goals, kind of take it or leave it and let the culture of the company speak.
Yeah.
Because we are seeing, who was it? Deloitte, for example, this month made like 6 months paternity leave as well as maternity
I
leave.
know, and that's a really good thing because then it's become less about, then you could be like, well, you've got two men,
Yeah.
is it like the 30-year-old man going to become a dad? But then it's then encouraging other firms to offer that, and then also obviously the men
Yeah.
to take that up,
Yeah.
Lloyd, and then it just becomes such a more equal playing field.
Yes. Yeah. So what for people that are listening, that are involved in creating recruitment processes, we've obviously spoken a little bit about what not to do.
Don't do that.
What do you think people can do to so we've spoken about being open to providing flexibility and being open
Yeah,
to applicants that maybe, want that flexibility. So it's thinking about how you can deliver the role differently. But is there anything else that people in particular
yeah.
recruiting could think or do?
There's lots of things. I mean, there's lots of studies that show that men apply for roles if they meet 60% of criteria, and women apply if they meet 100%. So women are obviously a lot more self-critical and a lot more nervous about applying for roles if they think they don't tick all the boxes. So it's actually challenging. What do you need for this role? What do
Mm.
you actually need? And actually think about your priorities, because being honest, I get a lot of employers that come to me because they don't have many women in certain teams and they want to hire more women, but then they make no adaptation for roles. But actually, if you want more balanced teams, then actually thinking, what do you need, what's important, is every criteria essential, or is there certain things you can flex on? And this is not doing disservice to women. It's not about hiring less quality talent or anything like that, or bringing the standard of the team down. It's actually just creating a more rounded team as well, and a more balanced team that has lots of different views, which is always beneficial for organizations. So I think it's actually going through thinking what is and isn't essential for each role, and what maybe is just nice to have. And then you could actually have a separate section in the ad. We don't expect you to have everything. Some of these are just more nice to haves. And I think with the adverts, I mean, the amount of times I just see basically a job spec used as an advert, and this is just a general thing, and they're so dry and boring. And actually, an advert is an advert. It's meant to get somebody excited. It's meant to, an advert in the real world is meant to encourage somebody to buy. So really, an advert is meant to, you want people to fall in love with your organization from the words, and fall in love. It's not buying, but it's clicking apply. And so you want to create that emotion. Salary, I really wish employers would use salary, because that's just such a waste of time. Having
It's such a waste of
competitive,
time. Yeah.
such a waste of, and it's wasted time for you and for the person. And I do push back on employers that put competitive, and often it's because it's a political thing, because they know they're underpaying people in the team, or it's going to cause some issues. So that's why they don't always advertise. But I just
Whoa.
think,
So even if you're working at a company and they're advertising roles
and
using
you
salary instead of the numbers, that's an indicator that someone's
well, it's an indicator that maybe it's not
interested.
obviously everywhere, but possibly. And they don't want to have those uncomfortable conversations
Yeah.
with their own employees. But yeah, I just think if you can, I think obviously that's being honest with your employees, current employees, but you're going to just get the right level of person then for your roles.
Yes. I mean, I remember specifically being told not to discuss bonus with the other person at my level in a different team.
Yeah, I've had that
Um,
before.
like, do not, because we've asked to give you the biggest bonus possible, and we don't know what's, and
Yeah,
they,
I get that. It's quite, I
yeah,
mean, I don't get it, but I've had that, and it's like psychological mind games.
yeah, and to this day, I'm like, was that true, or was he being paid more because he was a guy? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, was they telling that story to the other person?
Yeah, I mean,
Probably told it to everybody.
yes, but I mean, I just remember we were like the juniors on the same team. We started at the same time, like
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
learning together, and we were working in Mayfair in finance. And I'm just like,
It's really annoying, isn't it? And I remember that. And then if you got a pay rise, you can't tell anybody else you've got a pay rise.
mhm.
And you couldn't, and I remember as well, it was a sackable offence if we discussed salaries.
Yeah, wow, it's crazy. I even remember with this job, I got offered a salary, and then they asked my previous salary, and then they lowered my offer. And I didn't know that you didn't have to give that information.
Yeah, that's really poor, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
Did
interesting.
you accept it then?
Yes, it was. I'm not gonna lie, it was very well. It was still very well paid. It wasn't,
Yeah,
and it was still a big jump. But I do remember a year later when they said we're giving you a raise like 1% above inflation, which at that time was like one
yeah, it
something.
wasn't a lot.
And I was like, but this salary is still less than what you offered me a year ago.
It's
So
difficult, isn't it?
yeah, but
I
exactly.
do think like in America, you're not allowed, I think in certain states, maybe not the whole of America. Don't quote me, but definitely in certain states, you're not allowed to ask
I heard
candidates
that, yeah.
what their previous employer what salary was, which I would love to see here.
Yeah. And I also think just for anyone listening who's applying for jobs or in the process of applying for jobs, like you don't have to answer a question just because it's asked. And I didn't know that then.
Hmm.
Um, and
I do think the onus should be on the recruiter not to ask those questions.
I didn't
Because
go through a recruiter, so I think
yeah,
that's
yeah, but but even in the in-house recruitment team,
oh yeah. Oh yes. I mean,
yeah,
but of course, like it benefited them. They got to pay me less.
exactly.
It's a win. Like if you think about who's employing the in-house recruiter and who's
Yeah,
paying
it's
their
a win for the
salary,
employer.
it's a win for the employer. You're not like that. That I think is part of the advantage of working with someone like you is you have a different incentive to protect,
Hmm.
especially because of
To be honest, we don't work like that, but a normal recruitment agency does, in that actually they do have an incentive to get you a higher salary because they
uh,
get paid commission on that first year's salary. It's usually 20%. So if they can get you more, they will.
yeah, great. That's
Yeah.
great. Like aligned. Sounds awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it is good. So yeah, if you can find a good recruiter that you get on with, and if they stay in the same sector as you, you can literally have a relationship with them your entire career.
Yeah. Um, Before we close up, I want to go back to what you said about the job adverts because I think
Yeah.
it's so powerful and I think it's such an underused platform or resource. And when you spoke about, you're not getting people to buy, I think adverts are always getting people to take action, whether it's
Yeah.
go to a website or sign up or
Yeah.
your email or whatever it might be. And I'm with you. I've only ever really seen job adverts that look like
Just
literal
like,
documents,
yeah, like an instruction manual.
construction.
Why have you done that?
Yeah. So do you have any advice for anyone listening who's like, okay, I agree with that. I would love to improve our job adverts.
I think the best thing you could do is actually invest in some training for the people that write the job adverts, some copywriting training.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that will transform how the people that write the adverts write, and definitely use the words like remember you're speaking to one person, you want them to take action, and you need to sell your company and you need to sell that role to them. I mean, at the moment, this year has been quite you've talked about cycles, I think, with another guest. At the moment, it has been quite an employer this year.
Wow.
There hasn't been all that many jobs. It's been an employer's market, but it will change, and more companies will be fighting for top talent. So therefore, you're going to have to make those job adverts work even harder than ever. Yeah, so I think invest in some copywriting training for your team.
Yes, absolutely. Is there anything else you want to leave anyone with in terms of potentially the recruitment process, what you see changing, ways that they can be supported, or things that you're seeing in the market, or anything? that you feel like, just
I th-
this is what I wish I knew? Or...
I think don't drag it out. Sometimes it's like 5, 6 interviews. Don't do that, because you're just going to lose. You're going to lose the best people in that process, because they're going to find something else. So I think 2 to 3 interviews max. Make sure maybe they're meeting a few people in one interview. Try and be efficient with time, and this is helping, I think, with the whole D&I within organizations. And what we used to try and do when I worked in Big Four was actually make sure you have a balanced interview panel, because otherwise you're just going to be getting one type of view the entire time. So try and have some different people interviewing. Admittedly, for some roles, it will be quite technical, so you will need the technical interview. But get a HR into perspective, get somebody from another team, and actually listen to their perspective, because often it's about culture. A lot of things can be taught, but actually, who's going to fit in with the culture, but also challenge the culture in a good way as well, and add to the culture and enrich it.
Amazing. So good. Thank you so much for being here and sharing.
That's all right.
The chat. Remind people of your podcast maybe, so that...
Yeah, so it's called Work It Like a Mum, and you'll be out. Maybe we can tie it in so we're out in the same week. And the website, my website is investinginwomen.co.uk.
Yes, and definitely share that with anyone you know who feels like they are trapped in
Yeah. Yeah, we've got loads of lovely, nice, part-time, home-based jobs, nice hybrid jobs as well that actually are still really flexible, and they're quite good because you still get a full-time wage as well. So
amazing. Thanks everybody for listening. If you enjoyed the podcast, please leave a little review. The links in the show notes will be to Elizabeth's podcast, her website, her LinkedIn, my LinkedIn, and also a form. If you know someone that you think would be an amazing guest on this podcast, please send it to them. And thanks for being here. Bye, everyone.